Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. This is going to be a heavy episode today, but it's a topic that is much needed to be discussed and shared with amongst all of your friends, your colleagues, and everyone. Today we're going to be talking about child abuse and child trafficking. With me today is an author, advocate, mentor, and also a child from past generations that has endured some of the most violent cases of child abuse and child trafficking. She has been exposed with this in the form of severe neglect, rotting skin, no medical or dental care that was provided, and there is so much more. What I absolutely love is that she, who has been one of millions that has endured a lifetime in trained tolerance of violence, but now is teaching and has implemented a program so that those can move beyond that. What's important, though, is that we understand what it's about, what are the signs to look for, and who we contact and what we need to do. She has been known and compared to her story called My Justice, and it's been compared to Dave Pelzer's book, A Child Called It. And I've got to tell you, after reading that book along with his subsequent books, it is something that nobody ever fathoms could happen, and yet it happens, and no one is talking about it to the degree that we need to talk to address it and to get it stopped. Welcome to the show with me, Patricia McKnight. Welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's wonderful to be here.
I am really excited to have you on the show for many reasons. I know that you have a story behind you to share, but you have really been able to come full circle and make it so that others don't have to experience the horrific issues that come along with child abuse and child trafficking.
Yes,
so
thank you.
We're going to talk about that today. And the first thing I want to talk about is how you got to where you are now.
A lot of hard work. It took 10 years of personal therapy to get me to where I am today. And it's taken the last 6 years of actually stepping out there and making myself vulnerable, putting my story, all the dirty little secrets out there. That in and of itself, to finally break that silence and help someone, it's what we try to encourage survivors and victims to do. Tell someone, get help. But we're all so ashamed because the acts themselves make us feel ashamed, along with the abuse and the neglect and the condemning words and the bullying and being afraid in rural communities. Everybody knows me. What are they going to say? What are they going to think? So coming forward was a huge first step for me. And then great support from the man of my life who came to me and has supported me the last 12 years and encourages me to keep going and to believe that what I do matters. All of that combined, and the friends and the organizations that have stood behind me and with me and beside me all the way.
Your life has been dedicated to helping others move beyond child abuse and child trafficking, but many are probably thinking that there is a little bit of difference in that child abuse happens at home and child trafficking is what happens where they, snatch up a kid and send them overseas, and then they're involved in the drug trade and prostitution. And so maybe we can have you share with the audience the differences and how they also mesh together.
Oh, definitely. Yes, we've got the situations most definitely to where immigrants coming into the country, their children are at high risk. They may even give their children away in order to get to the country.
Okay.
Um, and they put their children in that position. With the type of child trafficking that I went through and that millions of others have gone through, it's very up close and very personal in that it is the parents or at least a guardian, someone within the home that has control over the child, that
Okay.
has the authority to decide who that child associates with, where
Mm-hmm.
they go, when they leave. So that person is the one most likely. And the CDC has actually estimated that 93% of all maltreatments against children happen by an immediate family member within the home. The
Yes.
other 7% are strangers and coaches and teachers, that kind of thing. So it's really more so about providing teens and preteens with the encouragement, teaching them up front, you deserve to be safe, you have rights that will protect you, to keep you safe. So regardless of where you're being hurt, maybe family needs some help, let's get some help, let's figure out what's going on so we can make it better and it doesn't grow worse.
Mm-hmm. Trish, I'm just sort of sitting here in shock because I'm thinking, I know that, child abuse and sexual abuse is often more susceptible by someone that is a family or close
Correct.
relative, right? Family member or
Correct.
close relative. So, um, but when I was listening to you, I just am taken back to think that that includes child trafficking
Yes.
by a family member or a relative. I'm just blown away, and I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around that. I can't imagine anyone wanting to put their child in a position
To where they're
to,
being used and exploited, and
yes.
for whatever reason it might be, maybe there are a few different situations that could put a child in that scenario. Maybe it is a wounded parent who is financially dependent upon someone providing shelter for them
Okay.
and the children, and
Okay.
rather than intervening and preventing it from happening, they are in fact dismissing, minimizing, and allowing it to happen, which is
Mm-hmm.
what my mother did. She actually got involved with the trafficking itself,
Oh
and
my gosh.
taking me on their dates and out drinking and dancing and luring in men to buy us drinks and having parties at our house late at night
Uh-huh.
where she would sit in her bedroom and watch TV while I'm being fed alcohol and marijuana by 10 grown men sitting in our living room watching porn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are the types of scenarios that, maybe that's one. Maybe the other is that there's an addiction that they need to feed. Maybe they need the money to supply that addiction. What
Mm-hmm.
do? They trade their child. Maybe it's a scenario to where the one parent actually does not know about what's going on, but the other
Okay.
guardian will take the child to and from, or say, we're going out to this place, but instead take them to a private party scenario. My
Okay.
stepfather did that many, many times.
So
Those are just a few.
this is really interesting because, like I said, most often we think about trafficking as, the child being taken away and,
Mm-hmm.
as kidnapped and sold overseas and so on and so forth.
Correct.
But this brings an absolutely different dimension to it because we're talking about trafficked in your own home. And this is really horrific. It falls under child abuse, but it also falls under child trafficking.
Child trafficking.
Yes.
Correct.
And this is something that I think really needs to be brought to the attention of everyone across the United States, because I know that there's signs, and
Yes,
I know
most
that
definitely.
and there are organizations and assistance such as what you are doing to help
Correct.
people get away from that.
Correct.
So I'm really excited for you also to share more. What would be some of the signs that others would be able to detect,
That you
whether
can
it be
see.
from a child or in the parent's role?
Okay. In the child, depending on the age of the child, for a very young child, you want to look to see if they know inappropriate sexual behavior balanced out according to age.
Okay.
Um, an example of that would be at 6 years old, I can remember that the only way I knew how to play with my Barbie and Ken doll was in a man on top of woman sexual manner.
Right.
So what 6-year-old uses their Barbie dolls in this manner if someone hasn't taught this to them. For preteens, that 9 to 12-year-old stage, you're going to start to see signs of aggression. And maybe
Oh.
they don't want to go see a certain someone, or they don't want to be left alone with a certain someone. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you see them out in public and it's happening at home, they may very well pretend that absolutely everything is fine. But perhaps their hygiene is really bad, lack of medical care. Maybe they have, such as I had, their dirty clothes, dirty hair. There's no, they need food. They are not being cared for as other children are being cared for. By the
Mm-hmm.
time they reach their teenage years, it's drug abuse and it's eating disorders and it's failing grades in school, arguments and fights and disrupted social behaviors, lack of connection in social settings, or fear of social settings themselves.
That is really very interesting, and a lot of times people are not picking up on these things, or they're attributing them to something else like a drug addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, there's a reason that a young child has a drug addiction. Certainly there are those that, are just getting in with the wrong crowd. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is happening. But we have to question it first, but rather than condemn them for the drug addiction, ask them if they're covering up some kind of pain, or maybe it's helping them cope with something, rather than condemning and shaming and criminalizing them for having that problem. Anyone that's got an addiction, the National Institute of Drug Addictions actually provides that up to 87% of drug addictions are related to some type of adverse childhood experience, the ACE exam. So,
That's a pretty significant number, and a lot of
huge
times
number.
a lot of people wouldn't attribute it to that either. Like you said, they would think that it has to do with peer pressure or something along those lines.
Correct.
And even with child trafficking, the people are under the assumption that the child is a runaway, and that's how they got involved with this. So what is very, very just perfect in what you said when talking with a teenager and trying to determine what's going on with them is asking
Correct.
them about their pain, because there is no shame there. It's really reaching to them and saying, I want to help you. Talk
I
to
can.
me and share what you're feeling. I love it.
Yes, yeah, connect with them. They have enough judgment. Social media makes it so easy for us to quickly judge and condemn other people because we're doing it from the protection of a screen. There's no
Mm-hmm.
face-to-face contact. Our kids deal with this 24/7 at school, online. It's in their world. We know about bullying. Everybody's talked about bullying. Well, bullying also is a tactic that's used at home to emotionally destroy a kid, to break a spirit down, or to terrify them and terrorize them into allowing or taking part in these sexual activities, either
Uh-huh.
with that particular person or with other people.
This is absolutely mind-blowing to just really think about what's going on right in our own communities, and it's almost like no one's the wiser, and it's something that needs to be discussed and brought about. What about the victim, the child? Where can they go? What do they need to do so that they can protect themselves emotionally, physically, mentally, and be able to get away from that? Because my guess is there's a stronghold. If it's going on within the family, they don't want to
Yeah,
rat mom or dad out because there's
correct.
consequences for that. And
And
then
most
where are they going to go?
often, right, and most often, abused children, any type of abuse, by their parents, they are going to still protect their parents 150%. Chances are likely they will never turn them in, and they will live like me and the generations past and carry 30 years of nightmares and PTSD and depression and fear and anxiety with them and horrific secrets, rather than ever even confront their parents or go to someone for help. We keep
Yes.
encouraging kids to, hey, speak up, watch out for your friends, watch out for your siblings, watch out for your neighbors. The more we do that, hopefully we will get better and better at that. And we can communicate that on their level. Basically, to me, it's no different than teaching them the rights of the American Constitution. You have human rights. That's what our Constitution is about. You have
Yes.
freedoms. That's what our Constitution is about. And that doesn't apply to you just because you're 18 to 100. That applies to you from the moment you are born
Yes.
and to the
Yes.
moment you die. You are protected equally. If we are going to protect and defend the murderers and the rapists and even the child traffickers, then we absolutely have to step up and see that it is a crime. And as much as the family may seriously need, if they are trafficking their child, if they're selling that child or exploiting that child, be it online, which is so very easy to do, or doing it person to person with other people. As I said, my parents used to invite people to our house. It was a late night Friday party that started at about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning with a half barrel of beer, a couple of joints, and a 15-year-old. Well, at that time I was 13 years old when the party started. And I was 9 years old the first time he took me up to the bar where my mother worked and started telling me how I needed to walk and offered me out to one of the guys that was shooting pool. This is the bar where my mother worked. Everybody knew us. It was a very small town. So right in the center of town, and everyone knew the deviant style of my stepfather. And this was watched, and it lasted for 12 years that I went through. And I didn't escape until I was 17. The first relationship I jumped into, of course, was a dangerous one because I didn't know any different.
Right.
The second one got a little better. The third one slipped backwards and got worse again. But the sad part is my wounds carried my children's lives. And it happens every day that we have single parents that are already previously wounded from childhood traumas, maybe trafficking, maybe physical harm, or some other type of sexual harm. And they're not able to connect with their children and not able to properly look out for them because of the pitfalls that they themselves fall into.
Right.
Because when you're a parent, you fall into a pitfall, you sink the children in with you.
Yes.
So, there's different scenarios that can happen and do happen. And it's about connecting with these kids, trying to get them to talk, but not giving up on the fact that, first of all, just be good to them. Be an example of good, to cross out the bad and show them something better so that they will believe that they deserve something better and that
Yes.
they won't have to stay in it for years and years waiting for rescue. They'll get strong enough to report to someone or make a statement to someone, and then it can go from there. But it's really difficult without hard evidence to put these criminals away.
Uh-huh.
In Illinois, right now, we are working on the statute of limitations updates. I just did a 3-year battle through our legislators in collaborations with our Attorney General to push for measures and updates, because right now we allow 1 year after a child turns 18 years old for them to turn around and try and seek any form of justice. So it doesn't matter who the trafficker is or who the offender is. If they've done anything wrong and they can't deal with it by the time they're 19, that's it. Any chance for justice is gone.
Yeah, that's just wrong. I mean, it takes a long time before somebody can be emotionally ready. I mean, it could be 2 years or 5 years
Correct.
before someone can say, okay, I don't have to live in fear anymore, and I'm going to speak up.
It can take a long process. Yes, you know
Yes,
that very well. Exactly. You know, it does take a long time even to get the courage to believe that you deserve something better.
I
If you're
agree with
raised in
you.
it, it
And
becomes the normal.
you said something to me that, and to the audience, that is just another mind blower. And that was, you said 9 years old. And now that is bringing me to the question of, what is the average youngest age that this is happening?
11,
Oh my
11,
gosh.
11.
11 years old. I cannot even imagine.
Between that 11 to 13-year-old stage, and it could be somebody in their home, or if you've got gangs in your neighborhood, you know, everybody knows what the gangs do.
Right.
You know, boys have got to sling the drugs or carry the money. Young girls are brought into the gangs for one purpose and one purpose only. And they will be expected to give out or to allow, because everybody gives to the gang to keep the gang going.
Right. That's right. And there is a lot of areas across the United States and around the world that are subjected to gangs. And there's, I mean, there's so many little ones that fall next to the large ones. I mean, there's just a ton of them across the United States and around the globe.
Correct. And, you know, it doesn't, it's not any less harmful if it's a gang member that does it, because this is going to be a kid who's living maybe with an alcoholic parent or a drug addicted parent who doesn't get regular feeding, regular care, safe, stable, positive environment. So they go look for something else. They want safety. They want acceptance. They want what feels like a family bond. They're being recruited in schools as young as 5th and 6th grade. You know, so it just keeps happening, and that's our cycle now. So if we figure that, you know, the gang is now that child's family, so the leader of that gang or the leaders of that gang that this child looks up to, using them and pawning them out, so to speak, you know, it's the same detrimental type of harm, and even worse, because now the child is going to feel like they walked into it and willingly did this.
Yes.
But it's not that. They are being manipulated into this.
Yes, and I think a lot of people fail to realize how strong the manipulation factor is, because the ultimate thing people say is, well, that's a choice that you have made. But there is so much depth to what is happening on the streets that unless you have been around it, whether it's on the law enforcement side or you have been around to see it in your community, you really don't know the degree of what's happening out there.
You only see what they want you to see. You don't see what goes on inside those buildings. And it's the same thing in rural communities like where I live and Uh, it's very, you don't know what goes on inside the homes. The homes are perfect outside and the family looks perfect and they all go to church and their reputation is stable. And
Yes.
that child's worst fear, they have been ingrained to believe, you say something about this, nobody's going to believe you anyway.
That's
And
right.
on the average, a child has to tell 7 adults before they find one who will believe them. I don't have that much courage to
You
keep
know,
going and going and going.
one of the things that about the program that I created in reference to domestic violence is that they only had to tell one person, because the
Yeah.
challenge is I'm exposing these horrific things that have happened. I'm
Yeah.
humiliated. I am embarrassed. I have shame. I don't want anybody to know, but I don't know what to do. I do not have to want to repeat this, because just hearing about it brings back the pain as
Saying it.
well.
Yes.
Yes.
Just saying it.
Yes. So to me, when you say the average is 7 people that they have to tell,
Yes. Before they find one who will believe them and help them.
that is unacceptable. I mean, it just
These
is
are children.
unacceptable.
These are children. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say children, I'm saying between that 1-year-old stage where they're just starting to put actions and words together, all the way up to 16, 17 years old. These are kids so programmed to believe they have no choice but to follow. This is their survival. They
Yes.
depend on parents for food and shelter. They can't support themselves. They can't work. They don't even know how to get themselves up in the morning. There are so many different levels. How it doesn't take much to manipulate a child into saying, if you want to make me happy, this is what it's going to take.
Yes.
Doesn't take much to manipulate a child and make them feel they're doing it willingly to release your blame and your guilt.
Yes, yes, exactly. And one of the things that I'm thinking as you talk about this, and I know so much about the domestic violence cycle, and my thought then comes to this. So as they have been groomed as children, they will
Yes.
grow up to be traffickers themselves, correct? Do you have a
Mm,
number on that, or am I kind of
Well,
off base?
actually, for kids who have gone through this kind of thing, um, it's really hard to say how they're going to grow up. There's 2 ways that it'll go. Either
Okay.
they're going to, just like if they're always bullied, they're either going to grow up to be a bully or they're going to grow up to be a perfect victim for a bully, to where they are
Yes.
always submissive and tolerant of things.
Yes.
So the personality can begin to change and develop as early as still developing in the womb, depending on the atmosphere that they are living in. If a woman's pregnant and she's in a violent relationship, the baby's brain, the frontal lobe, actually starts having impairments during the developing stages. It affects learning and emotional balances, decision making, critical thinking, that type of process. Now, when they get out of this, they grow up to be adults, most of them are very compassionate, and the last thing they want to do is hurt someone because they know what it's like to be hurt.
Uh-huh.
But you do have that percentage that is going to go out, and maybe they're so broken and so messed up inside that they don't know anything but the anger or the addiction that then makes them angry, or the behaviors of what they saw inside their home or had to live through, be it beatings or whatever the control or manipulation might have been. So, there's a lot of varying studies that the National Institute of Mental Health and the PTSD.gov website And the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. They
Okay.
collected data for the past 10 years. Now they're watching the next 10 years to see how this affects the growing and the developing and the adult person.
This
So,
is just quite interesting. It's very saddening. I mean, it's disheartening to think what's happening. I would like to know about the book that you have authored, and I'd also like to
if
know
I
about
may,
your program.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, if you could see, this is My Justice. My son actually designed the cover for me.
I love
He
it.
is a graphic artist, and I needed a little girl with angel wings, and he created this one for me. The book is not about any legal form of justice. It's about the only form of justice I could ever get, and that's about finding the strength to finally use what had happened to me and to put it out there for people to hopefully understand not only what this does to the kids who are trapped in this, and not just on the child trafficking level, but even on the neglect and the enslavement and the servitude aspect of it. You know, I was so entrapped within my family home that my mother actually bought my stepfather a little brass bell. And when he needed either a glass of iced tea or for me to come down and change the channel on the television set, or to give my sister a bath or cook dinner or whatever, they would ring that bell. And I was the only one out of that family of 5 that was expected and had better have been there within seconds after he rang that bell. That's
Oh
what you
my
call,
goodness.
you know, that's enslavement of a child. I didn't
Yes.
go out and play. I cleaned and I scrubbed and I cooked. We had the very best medical insurance during the 70s. It was the United Mine Workers, and they covered everything. They would have covered absolutely all of my care, wouldn't have cost them a penny. My body is covered 80% with scars and pits from layers of sores and infection from 5 years of not being able to bathe in my home safely. No
Oh my
dental care.
goodness.
My teeth broken and rotted by the time I was 13. I can't even remember what a real smile looks like anymore. You know, there are just so many detrimental personality destructions that go on whenever anyone lives in that type of environment. And I wanted to put it out there because I didn't want another family. I'm a grandma now, and I'm seeing my kids in their adult relationships, and it's hard. It's so hard because I see them, you know, we all say that, yeah, my kids are making the same mistakes as I did, right? And we try to steer them away from that. My daughters fall for the guys who abuse them. My son lets women take complete advantage of him to where he will completely give of himself and never expect anything in return. My grandkids have been harmed by what they have lived through in the shouting matches and the threatening matches and the step-parent control inside their homes. So I'm seeing it in my 3rd generation, and I'm really tired of seeing it go through my family. So I figured I had to do something. I took my journals from my therapy, and I was in my 3rd nervous breakdown, and I just started writing. And it was so severe that I could only take it one event or attack at a time. And then it would take me a couple days to process that and all of the emotions that it brought up. And then I could go on to chapter 2 and write about the next event and how the next attack came about, you know?
Right.
So, but there was so much of it. And even through my adult relationships one just led right into the other. And I was a mess for 37 years of my life. I was a complete mess. And it's taken a very long time to become strong and educated and believe that I actually have something worthwhile that I really need to tell people.
Yes,
so thank you
you
for
do.
giving me this huge opportunity to do this on your program.
Yes, of course, of course. And speaking of programs, I'd like to hear about the one that you've created.
Yes, it's titled A View from the Inside, Family Trauma and Human Trafficking. And it connects all of the statistical data that I've researched and broken down over the last 3 years, as well as what I've studied through the mental health programs and what I've learned being a member of the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, and also what I've learned through gaining my certifications to become a domestic violence and child abuse advocate, as well as a human trafficking trainer. So it's a combined knowledge of all of that, and it takes about anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to go through the presentation.
Okay.
I've already done it for foster parents, direct care staff workers, churchers. I presented at the University of Illinois Springfield campus,
Okay.
and Lindenwood University and some other SIU Edwardsville as well. So, yeah, just a lot of different venues already. And I'm just looking to keep on going. Whoever will have listen to me, I will come speak. Yes.
This is fantastic. Now, do you also train others to teach your program? Yes.
Yes.
How does that work? If they say live in another state and they really want to be able to get the message out there?
I have the actual PowerPoint that I forward to them, and upon studying that and reviewing that, bring me back what you've learned from that. Tell me a little bit about your adverse childhood experiences or your addiction problems or domestic violence problems. And let's combine the best way that you can make this very personable for you to get up there and present this material.
Fantastic. This is absolutely incredible. And I know that this has been difficult to talk about, I'm sure, again, because it just is always part of you.
It is.
And I want to thank you so much for your courage. I want to thank you for getting this message out. It is necessary. We need to be aware of what's going on in our communities and not think that this is just something that you see in the movies. If you're close to, the border or something, that's not the way it works. Things are happening right there in your community.
Every small community. There's not a community across the country that doesn't have some type. Actually, the CDC estimates that 1 in 4 American homes. So if you live in an apartment building, that's apartment A, B, C, and D, one of you is dealing with some form of domestic violence, mental illness, addiction, harm, child abuse, bullying, sexual harm. 1 in 4.
That's a huge number.
It is a huge number. It is. I'm looking out my window in the bedroom. I've got the house across the street, the house next door, and the house on this side. I know my neighbors, and I know what happens, in the different houses, because I can hear it even in our separate houses with our yards in between us. So I know that in apartment buildings and in duplexes and row housing, you hear what goes on. There was a case, before we go, just as an example, of a babysitter who came home with her 2 boys and listened to the little girl that she watched at times be beaten for 4 straight consecutive hours without calling 911. Mom gets home from work, the little girl is dead, she calls police. The boyfriend is taken into custody, and when the news teams arrive to talk about this story, that same woman, that same babysitter that wouldn't call 911 for this little girl, goes on public television, public news, and said, I was afraid to call 911. Doesn't make any sense, right?
Afraid maybe because the boyfriend would have done
That
the
he would
same.
retaliate, the police would be there. You're going to rescue that child.
Right.
And instead you listen to it for 4 consecutive hours. I don't know how anybody has a heart to do that, but we all do it. We turn up the TV, we turn away, we ignore it, we do whatever we need to do because maybe it's got painful memories for us. Maybe there's some guilt. Maybe there's whatever going on. But we all say, maybe it's too big for us to address. If we do it all together, we can actually do it one house at a time.
I agree with you. And I want to, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can the audience get in contact with you, get a copy of your book, and get involved?
My Justice is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and authorhouse.com. It's an ebook, Nook, goodness gracious, forgot the other one, forgot the Amazon
Kindle.
one. Kindle, thank you very much. And also getting in touch with me, you can either look for Patricia McKnight and Breeze, Illinois on Facebook, or just email me p.mcknight@charter.net, and I will be more than happy to connect, respond. I highly suggest that everyone check out the NASDA website, naasda.org. If you need a resource, if you need information, they have lists from across the country and even into other parts of the world of resources. And they were a huge part of the support for me, and I am so proud to represent them as well.
I am really excited that that there is hope out there, that there are resources, and people do have a place to turn and start looking to address this problem. And for those of you who have been watching, do take to heart what's been said today, because you may have someone right there 4 houses down or 3 houses down from where you are living that's experiencing something that they need help with. And the child trafficking and the child abuse is something that goes unspoken for so long and for too long. Please take an opportunity over the next day or two to start thinking about things and places of where you go and what you do, and if you're noticing anything that could be different about someone. Take the time to be available to someone and ask them how they're hurting, and see if there is something that you can do or a resource that you can direct them to, such as Tricia's organization.
Abuse recovery, yes.
Yes, because this is something that, as she said, we all need to speak up. And these things that go on behind closed doors, while we may think it's something that may amount to nothing, it may be much deeper than what you could have imagined. And really, we need to be able to assist those who can't help themselves. Thank you for tuning in to Rebecca Selden's Reveille. This program has been brought to you by the Liberty Beacon, TLBTV. We ask that you share this with your friends, your colleagues, and anywhere you can on social media. Let's together make a difference.